Okay, good morning. This is Richard Hsu, host of Hsu Untied. This morning, I'm very thrilled to have with me as my guest An Liu, who's a partner at Nixon Peabody. An, welcome to the program.
Thanks. It's a pleasure to be here.
Now, An, you've had a very interesting career even prior to law. Tell me a little about some of the things that you did before you even became a lawyer.
Okay. You know that examination you take as you're graduating from college? It tells you the top 5 things you should do.
Mm-hmm.
So I took that and I took it seriously. It said, number 1, actor. Number 2, salesperson. Number 3, minister. Number 4, lawyer. And number 5, foreign service. So I think my whole life has been spent doing all 5 of those things. I'm down to 1. I've got 4 down, 1 to go.
Well, tell me a little about some of the things you've done. The actor, for example, and tell me a little about that.
Oh, it's all right. After I graduated from college, I went to Hong Kong to act in movies.
Uh-huh.
It's one of those things you do when you're 21 that you can't do when you're, 51, 61, 71. That was a lot of fun.
Uh-huh.
I spent about 10 years doing sales. Back then, they were called .com, and I was doing business development. I was in charge of Europe and Latin America. So my job would be to launch these hardware and software products all over Europe and Latin America. This is long before the days of euro. So it'd be running from Paris to London to Amsterdam to Oslo to Stockholm to Munich with 6 different kinds of currencies. And after this, I worked as a minister. It's great in terms of learning how to read people, how to be empathetic, how to speak with people, how to listen. And then finally, I went to law school. I graduated in 2005. So it's been like 15, 16 years now. One thing I haven't done is foreign service. So maybe in the next decade.
Well, tell me, how have you integrated all your different past experiences into being a lawyer? I'm sure you use a lot of the skills in your legal practice. Tell me about that.
Yeah, it's really funny. I feel like law is the culmination of all the things that I love the most, right? It's the drama, it's the strategy, it's the thinking, it's the creativity, it's the speaking, it's the convincing, sometimes it's the arguing. So I think law, for me at least, is really the only job that brings everything together. The ministry aspect of it I talked about. The acting aspect I think is obvious. When you're in front of a camera and you've got a lot of people around you, you're taking direction. I think about the sales aspect of it. In one of the interviews that you gave, Richard, you were saying that being a lawyer is kind of like being a waiter, right? Mm-hmm. So I think some of the best experience you can have in terms of being a lawyer is that sales experience. That's what I did for about 10 years, right? So when you're selling and you're in business development mode, you're managing up, you're managing down. I love that. As a partner, so much of the work we do is business generation, which is basically sales.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. Well, tell me a little bit about your practice. You've got a very interesting IP practice, one of the more unusual ones that I've come across.
Can I show you pictures? Because I think a picture is worth 1,000 words.
Yes, for sure.
If I could share my screen. So this is my practice. These are engineers who are very, very, very happy. The number 1 that they're showing off here that's the product, the name of the product that we're working on. So Richard, a lot of the work that I do involves patent mining. And in this sense, we were patent mining in Taipei. Every single one of these stickies represents an idea that came out of these patent mining sessions we were doing in Taipei. This is San Diego. It's with another client. And these are all engineers. And it's hard to get engineers that excited about creating patents, but that's what's happening here. And again, every single one of the stickies in the background is an idea that became an invention that eventually became a patent. This is Minneapolis. And, they know how to party in Minneapolis, and they know how to come up with some really, really great ideas as well.
And I see there's you in the front.
With my trademark Nixon Peabody neon pink shirt. Yep, that's me. This is Dublin. Now, when we arrived in Dublin, the engineers there were a little bit sleepy, but after a week of patent mining, this is the engineers with all the great ideas. There's about 50 patents that came out of that patent mining session that we did for a week in Dublin. This is Taipei again, and this is our client lead here, and this is the rest of us in our Nixon Peabody shirts doing the famous Charlie's Angel pose after a very successful week of patent mining. Copenhagen, right? These guys get excited over patent mining. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, wait a minute, this is all pre-pandemic, but that's okay. At the beginning of the pandemic, one of the initiatives was to convert these patent mining workshops into a virtual setting. So this is with the crew here. I think this is out of Dublin as well. This is out of China that we did patent mining. So it's kind of goofy, but I just wanted to share photos with you because, you know, you've always said a picture is worth 1,000 words.
For sure. Well, how do you get clients? I mean, you know, obviously I was a patent lawyer myself. How do you get clients so excited and inspired about writing patents? Usually people see that as drudgery and a chore.
Oh God, no. Well, there's the macro level and there's the micro level. I think the macro level is really to help our clients understand that, look, you know, okay, here's an example. Like, Richard, do you have stock? Do you have bonds? Do you do crowdfunding?
Barely.
Right, okay. Well, do you have real estate that you invest in?
Barely.
Okay. They're all assets, right? Like, you wouldn't buy a stock, you wouldn't invest in an e-read if you weren't gonna make money off of it. Well, a patent is the same thing. It's an asset, right? So it's a trademark or a copyright. So why spend all that time, effort, that $20,000, $25,000 to get a patent if you're not going to make money off of it? So the first thing we want to help clients understand is patents, they're assets, right? You can use them to get funding. You can use them for defense. You can use them to protect shareholder value. You can use them to sell, to buy. And these are all things that we refer to as monetization. And I think that's a little bit of a difference between the way we, our firm and I view IP compared to how maybe other firms might view IP. Is an asset. And I think once clients understand that and really, really grasp it, they get that a patent is not just something you put on a wall in a conference room. It's meant to be monetized. So that's the macro level. On a micro level, we just have a lot of fun. I know every patent attorney on earth has done disclosure meetings or they've done patent mining. You know, you sit in front of the inventor or the engineer and it's an invention for a fork. And you say, well, how many prongs? And, you know, how long is it? And what color is it? We take that to a completely different level. We make it, well, not only should we be thinking about a fork, let's think about a spoon. How about a knife? Heck, let's think about the table setting. While we're at it, why don't we think about a dining table? Heck, why don't we patent the dining table legs? And we make it really, really fun. It's not an hour session. In fact, it's 10 hours a day. My punchline is always no dinner until we're done. So it's 10 hours of patent mining, 5 days in a row. We usually bring together not only the inventors and the engineers, we bring together the business development people, we bring together the support people, we bring together the marketing people. Sometimes we even bring in clients. So these patent mining workshops that we do will have 20, 30 people. And we break everybody into small groups. We rotate people in and out of the groups. Then we rotate the entire group. We problem solve. We predict the future. We look at competitors' products, how to block them. And it's a lot of fun. There's contests. Everybody presents their ideas. We've had Trump action figures. We've had Hillary action figures. We've had Ruth Bader Ginsburg action figures. We have karaoke. If we're on site, usually there's happy hour involved. So it's very dynamic. It's really fun. There's a sense of accomplishment. And I guarantee you, it's something that most inventors and engineers have never done.
Yeah, interesting. Well, most
patent attorneys haven't done it.
That's true. Now, when you go to a client and you try to tell them about this idea or how you're going to do that, do they seem skeptical? I mean, how do you persuade them to commit to this time? Because it's not just the money, but it's also the resources and all the people that they have. I mean, a week is a long time to commit to this.
I know, and you're absolutely right. They're always skeptical. But I think this is where we go back to the macro level and help them understand that we're creating assets. I think one of the case studies we had talked about, and you and I had first met, is we worked with a client in Taiwan. Over 7 or 8 years, we built a portfolio of about 600 patents for them. Right. So it's a Fortune 500 company, but at the time we started working with this specific division, they only had 20, 25 patents. So to build an arsenal about 600 patents over the past few years, over the last summer, we ended up cross-licensing that entire portfolio to a competitor. And the client made multiple millions, close to about 60 million. So if you think about it, they spent about $5, $6, $7 million to generate this portfolio, and they made about $60 million cross-licensing the portfolio. So that's just a great example. And when people have a business sense, they understand that, look, I'm doing this because I want to make money. When you realize that the end goal is to monetize, add value to your assets, you're a lot more willing to invest the time.
Now, I take it, although it sounds like you've been doing it through Zoom, I'm guessing it's really not as effective as getting everyone in the room and putting posted sticky notes on the window and stuff like that.
We thought that at first. And over the past 2 years, we've been refining this entire model. So now what we've done is we're always ready and willing to do it in person, but over Zoom, we added Miro. And Miro is a whiteboarding software that's great for brainstorming. One of the, all right, I'll tell you, one of the problems we had with physical patent mining is there is so much going on. There's people running around all over the place. They're trying to coordinate rooms. A lot of my time is spent, okay, Richard, your session's done. It's time to get back to the main room. And you're like, 5 more minutes. And I'm like, Richard, no, we got to get back. You know, you got 20 people waiting. But the great thing with Zoom and Miro, you can just shut down that breakout room where they have to come back. Another thing that Miro and Zoom have solved for us is, you know, all those stickies?
Yeah.
Right, so everybody's writing in their own handwriting, right? You know, and constantly we're like, what did he say? You know, what word does he use? What is that expression or what is that abbreviation? Who wrote this? Who's the inventor on this? Well, the great thing about Miro is everybody types their own stickies. It's obviously in a standard font. There is no time spent figuring out who did what because everybody is auto-tagged as the inventor. The script is really right there. So there's a lot of efficiencies to doing it online. The other benefit, and we're working with a medical device client, is we've got a series of 4 patent mining workshops coming up over the next couple of months. It's pulling together Sydney, Singapore, Halifax, and San Diego. So you can't beat the opportunity to patent mine in all these different time zones.
Yeah, no, totally. Well, how did you get, I mean, this is a very interesting practice. How did you get into this corner of law? I mean, obviously, you know, you went into law, I know it's one of your 4 career paths, but how did you get into IP in this area?
Yeah, I did litigation, IP litigation for about 10 years in federal court in the ITC. And the last jury trial I was involved in was in Texas. We defended a Chinese company against a local Texas company. We won. The verdict came back for the defense in 90 minutes, which is the fastest decision any Chinese company had ever gotten in a district. And the client still wasn't happy, right? And can you guess why they weren't happy?
I don't know.
They had to pay our bill. So, right, like as trial lawyers, if you win, they're still not happy because you have to pay them, and they never feel like they should have been sued in the first place. Right. And if you lose, they're really hating you. So I thought that at that time, look, you know, we as Americans tend to be people pleasers. We as Americans want our clients to be happy, and monetization, everybody's happy. You're making them money. So big picture, that's how I got over that. But I think the foundation of that is I feel like what I can contribute to this, and the reason I was able to create this system, if you will, is because it brings together a lot of the experiences that I had before. It was the salesmanship, right? There's the acting aspect of it. There's the creativity aspect of it. I got an MBA while I was working before I went to law school. So you have that business sense that maybe might be a little bit more rare amongst our patent community. So I think aggregating all those past experiences will really make this a possibility and a reality.
Now, most patent attorneys, as you know, are scientists or engineers before they became lawyers. You're not an engineer, as I recall. How are you able to make that work? I mean, do you feel out of water? Do you feel more in your element? How does that work?
Yeah, I think for a lot of IP attorneys, there is always a sense of imposter syndrome. Not in the sense that we're not attorneys or that we're fake, but I think in the sense that every new client we have, it's a brand new set of technology. We just started working with this amazing startup out of Texas that's poised to go public in the next 6 months to a year. My goodness, their technology is amazing. But when I look at that, I'm like, oh, this is going to take some studying. So there's always a part of me with every new client and every new technology where I feel like, my God, I don't know what this is. I need to spend hours and hours digging into it. But I was a political science major and an international relations major. I think the thing that I do have going for me is I spent 10 years in tech, right? Launching hardware and software companies. So that did give me a little bit of a technical background, even if it wasn't into the design. So in On's little world, I fancy myself as an architect creating these houses. And, you bring in the best electricians, you bring in the best plumbers, you bring in the best designers. But at the end of the day, as architects, we're really creating the house for the client.
Well, it sounds like this project, the stuff you're doing, didn't slow down at all during Zoom, during the pandemic. Are you going to just pick up right where you left off, or how are things going these days?
No, in no way did it slow down. In fact, it increased. I think maybe there just wasn't a lot to do. And maybe at the client site with some of the engineers, the inventors, maybe they had more time to devote to patents. I think for at least a few of those clients I was talking about, we had higher filings than we ever had. Wow. I think for one client in particular, we reached 100. And for this client in particular, it was really, really good. But I think where it did suffer is I do miss the face-to-face interactions. I do miss being on site. We've talked about the European Innovation Academy, Richard. That's something I've been doing for 7, 8, 9 years. And every summer I bring 2, 3, 4, 5 of our attorneys. Every year it's been different venues. It's been Nice, it's been Torino, it's been Lisbon. And we go on site. There's about 1,000 startups that come from 95 countries. It's a 3-week boot camp. And that last week, the Nixon Peabody attorneys, we crash land there and we train them on intellectual property. So there's keynotes, there's workshops, there's one-on-one clinics. All that has been virtual and it's been okay. But it just doesn't have the effect of being there in person.
Well, it sounds like you really obviously enjoy what you do. Do you miss the litigation part at all, the trial work? Is there any aspect of litigation you miss?
I'm still involved in some litigation. I've got 3 litigation matters going now. And part of monetization is sometimes you have to litigate, right? So sometimes you have to enforce that patent or that trademark for a client. A great example would be when they can't afford it, right? You've got a lot of inventors. I've got a client right now that's a really, really amazing client and case study. They created an amazing brand. It's a made in the USA, high quality hand sanitizer brand at the beginning of the pandemic. And then they were knocked off by a pretty large conglomerate. This large conglomerate thought they would have it manufactured in Mexico. So the Mexican factory wasn't manufacturing up to standards. They ended up putting methanol in the product. The FDA exposed them. The factory got put on a watch list. The client's brand was completely decimated. And because their entire business was decimated, they don't have the funds to initiate litigation against the bad guys. So getting them litigation funding, for example, was a really, really great way that we could help them monetize their investment into the brand and the trademarks they created.
Interesting. Well, do you have does that happen with most of your clients that you have to do litigation or not necessarily?
No. One of the beauties of this monetization process is we don't want to litigate. If there's any way to do it without litigating, we want to do that. And a lot of my Asian clients, I'd say 80% of my work is focused in Korea, China, Taiwan, and Japan. They don't want to litigate. And I think that's why the patent mining, the monetization, the asset creation, the opportunity to cross-license is attractive.
Well, you have one of the, as I said at the outset, you have one of the most interesting patent practices I have come across, and it was really enjoyable to chat with you about today, and I really appreciate you taking the time to share it with me.
Okay, thanks, Richard. It's always a pleasure to chat with you.
This is Richard Hsu and On Lu.